everyone, and welcome to the second edition of Translating Strategy into Performance Management on Amalgate Radio Communications. This beautiful Monday, July 21st, 2025. My name is Tolu Omodara. Once again, you're very warmly welcome to the second edition of Translating Strategy into Performance Management on Amalgate Radio Communications, and I remain your host, Tolu Omodara, saying welcome. Well, as we start today, we're going to take some quick highlights of what we covered last week, and then we'll go fully into the depth of today's episode. So last week was an introductory episode, and we were establishing why is it that we need to, connect strategy with performance management. Why exactly do we need to, connect strategy with performance management, right? Last week we said that strategy is like the map and performance management is the vehicle that guarantees arrival at the location. I repeat, strategy is like the map and performance management is the vehicle that guarantees arrival at the destination. In other words, strategy shows us the layout of where we are going as an organization within a certain period. Strategy even defines the destination. Where exactly are we going? What's our strategic priority? What are we trying to do? What are we trying to achieve? Strategy brings clarity, so you're not just a tourist exploring. You're actually a traveler going to a particular destination. That's what strategy does for you, right? But the map is not the vehicle. We made that very clear last week, right? Performance management is the vehicle that guarantees arrival at the destination. Performance management is the critical execution enabler. Very, very important, right? What's the point of having a map if you don't take the journey? So you can have a map, but the map is not going to carry you to the destination. A vehicle is going to carry you to the destination. Why do you need the map? You need the map to know where you're going. Very, very important, because you can equally have a vehicle and still arrive at the destination, especially if you have no destination. I remember when we were growing up, some people used to be called NFA, no future ambition, right? The adults around will look at them and say, this is an NFA. He has no clarity, or she has no sense of direction, right? But that's not what strategy does for you, and that's also not execution does for you, especially when both of them are strongly connected. If you have a map and you also have the vehicle that can get you to the location you have articulated on your map, you are more likely to arrive at the destination. And if you also have a vehicle with the map that knows, or clarifies, defines and clarifies where it is you're going, you're also not just likely to be wasting the fuel, right? So performance management is the critical execution enabler, and it ensures that you are going to arrive at a predefined destination. So last week we said very quickly that this program has three core elements: the strategy element, the performance management element, and the technology element. That's why we are talking about translating strategy into performance management with technology, using technology. Definitely we have to begin with the strategy. Very, very important. We said strategy is often done at the broader level, national, sometimes institutional, organizational, right? It is broadly speaking done at a wholesome level. Now that strength can become the weakness, right? Because strategy is supposed to be broad, it's supposed to be comprehensive, it's supposed to be inclusive. However, if organizational inclusivity does not translate into individual accountability, then there may be a challenge with bridging the strategy performance gap. I repeat, if organizational inclusivity does not translate into individual accountability, then there may be a challenge with arriving at the destination. In other words, everybody's job may become nobody's job, and you have little chunks of assignments, little chunks of deliverables that are implied within the strategy, which is on a broad level, but not explicitly defined as performance contract for setting roles with clear accountabilities. That is what performance management does. Very, very, very important. So when there is a failure to connect strategy with performance management, execution can be severely threatened. I repeat, when there is a failure to connect execution with performance management, execution can be severely threatened. Now, this is why it's important to have strategy as the map, performance management as a vehicle. Why then do we need technology? Now, in today's world, performance management is something that can be strongly enhanced, and even the process of translating strategy into performance management as well is something that can be very well supported with technology. Why? Because technology brings speed. Technology is not going to dictate your strategy. We made that clear last week, but it will certainly enable it. Technology is not going to frame your performance management process. You are still going to create your performance management framework, but it will definitely bring strategic speed and efficiency to what you have created, right? And speed strongly matters in today's world because it's a very dynamic and ever-changing world. Right, so you have to ensure that you are deploying technology strategically, but you also need to deploy technology. I repeat, you have to ensure that you are deploying technology strategically, definitely, but you also have to ensure that you are deploying technology. In other words, the inability or the fear of not deploying technology strategically is not enough of a reason, it's not enough of an excuse to fail to deploy technology. I've heard some people say, oh, sometimes they have technology and even the process of learning technology is cumbersome, and before you finish learning one technological piece or one technological tool, another one has been reintroduced, and the whole process is time taking, the whole process is cumbersome, people have become change weary, and I hear all kinds of things. Now, as valid as these things are, we still do not throw the baby away with the bathwater. So the reason why you deploy technology is to bring speed and efficiency. So definitely, you also do not want technology to now be cumbersomely deployed, right? You don't want to deploy technology inefficiently. You definitely want to deploy technology strategically to increase and enhance speed, not to further, clog the process. However, you do not throw away the baby with the bathwater. So the process of learning how to deploy technology efficiently and strategically is definitely something that we are good in Ambogate and we can support you with, but we definitely are not going to, be part of a process that says, you know what, because we are having challenges with deploying technology, we are then going to slow down the process of deploying technology, or we are going to stall on the process of deploying technology, and so on and so forth. No, that is still not acceptable. Definitely, as an organization, you have to ensure that you are deploying technology strategically to enable rather than to frustrate the translation of organizational strategy into performance management for guaranteeing and facilitating execution, right? It must be done, and it must be done as efficiently as possible. My name is Tolu Omoda on Ambogate Radio Communications. Warmly welcoming you again to the very second edition of Translating Strategy into Performance Management. This beautiful Monday, July 21, 2025. Now that we've done some kind of a quick recap of what we covered last week, remember you can go back to our YouTube. Please subscribe to our YouTube page. We have over 280 videos on very rich programs, from policy to strategy, to total rewards, and to economy, to even sports lessons, from sports leadership management. A lot of rich insights that can enable you. We have those on education as well, education as a national development. So much rich content that can enable you. Please subscribe to our YouTube page and also encourage others to subscribe to, right? It's very, very broad and very comprehensive, yet very specific. It speaks specifically to different issues while covering a broad range of management and leadership matters. Kindly, subscribe to our YouTube page, and you will catch up. Even if you have listened before, you learn a lot. Trust me, even I learn a lot by going back to listen to some of these things. Even though I shared them, I still go back to listen. You will learn a lot from reviewing and from sharing them with others as well, and even discussing the highlights. I remember we are always here to support your needs, your strategy articulation needs, your strategy implementation needs, your performance management creation. If you want to create your performance management framework creation, if you want to create a performance management framework that is, specifically enabling of your own peculiar strategy and context, we are here to support you with all of that, right? Very, very important. Well, we are going to go into the depth of today. Last week we said we're broadly showing why we needed to connect strategy with performance management, and today we're going to speak a little bit more to how to connect strategy with performance management. Now, one of the things you have to note is that there can be a mass of a cacophony of voices. I'm sure you have heard that before. Sometimes there's a cacophony of voices out there, right? And the question is, which is the voice in the midst of the noise? This is why you need to connect strategy with performance management. We used the word last week that is very important, and this is also how. Is the why, is part of the why, and it also gives you a clue as to the how. We introduced the word or a phrase last week, which is very important. We said there must be strategic clarity, right? Now, strategic clarity is part of the how to connect strategy with performance management. Now, let's go back to strategy. Remember, we said last week we already did a whole program, a quarter-long program. I remember doing that program titled Roadmap to Organizational Strategy. It's on Amoge Radio Communications. Please check it out, Roadmap to Organizational Strategy. So I'm not necessarily going to repeat the process of articulating strategy, which was already done in that program. But let me draw one or two highlights from what we know of doing strategy for almost 20 years at Amoge Radio and Amoge Communications Consult, and which we've been sharing on Amoge Radio Communications. Now, what we think to do with strategy is to bring precision. Amidst that cacophony of voices, you want to bring clarity, and what clarity does is that it enables you to achieve efficiency. Again, that was one word we used a lot last week, efficiency, right? Because when you don't define where you're going, right, with that level of strategic clarity and precision, what you're essentially saying to your organization is that they can define their priorities. Because either way, people choose their priorities. I'm going to say that again. As the organization, if you don't take charge of the process of bringing strategic clarity and precision and say this is what we are focusing on for this period, for this 3-year period, for this 3 to 5 year period, for this strategic year, for this full year, if you don't take charge of bringing that clarity and narrowing down efforts, streamlining effort to what is the priority of the organization, what happens is that you have opened the road wide for different people to determine where they're going. In other words, you have left the map relatively undefined, right? You have said to them, you can choose your destination on the map, and people will choose their priorities. Some people will come to the office or work from home, and they will decide to, you know what, I'm just going to focus on market share. Others are just going to say, you know what, I think I'm going to focus on brand visibility. Others are going to say, you know what, I'm just going to focus on profit increase. But you as the organization, and I'm saying this for leaders, you will have the helicopter view, right? We'll have the broad view of issues. We'll have the comprehensive view of issues. We'll have the detailed and accurate perspective. Should be the one bringing all of these diverse dynamics in the organization together to now determine the best chart or the best course that the organization should be charting. But if you do not do that, what happens is that there will be a dissonance, right? There will be a discordance, right? And that cacophony of voices will begin to happen in the organization or your institution or even your nation, right? Depending on the level at which you are setting the strategy. And so one division may be going in one direction and another division will be going other direction, and the same thing will happen at the departmental unit and individual levels. So it is very important to bring strategic clarity by streamlining, take note of that word, streamlining, narrowing down, defining the focus, right? What we think should do through the process of strategy articulation is to bring a streamlined focus, so that even if people are doing different things, I may be in charge of branding, but if you have defined at the organizational level that the focus for the organization for this period is profit, even my branding will be directed towards profit increase. If you have defined at the organization that this focus for this particular performance period, a 3-year period, a 3 to 5 year period, that the focus for this period is on profit, even if I am responsible for instance, product creation, I will ensure that I am not necessarily focusing on exploratory product creation, which will be innovation for the sake of exploration, but I'm focusing more on exploitative focus product creation that is ensuring that we are delivering the products that are more likely to guarantee market penetration and profit optimization. That happens when, as an organization, we have streamlined. Now, let's come to how you use that streamlining and strategic clarity to make the connection with performance management. Now, once you have defined your strategic priorities, very, very important. When you have defined your strategic direction as an organization, and you have translated the strategic direction into the strategic priorities, those strategic priorities should also become the performance themes that bind the organization. take note, performance themes that bind the organization. Now, the performance themes, of course, should and would translate into different performance goals for different roles, but the performance themes should be consistent across the organization, largely speaking, right? I repeat, the performance themes should and would, differ from role to role, in terms of performance goals. When you're taking the performance themes and you're translating them into performance goals, remember you have your strategic priority being translated into strategic themes / performance themes. Those strategic themes should then be the performance themes, right? So those performance themes would now be translated into performance goals for the different roles, but they are still connecting with the strategic direction through that vehicle of strategic themes / performance themes. Very, very important. Let's take a quick commercial break at this point, and we'll be right back. Thank you very much for waiting. Welcome back to our program. You're still tuned in to Translating Strategy into Performance Management with Amage Radio Communications with Tolu Omadara this beautiful Monday, July 21st, 2025. Right now, let's continue with our flow. We've talked about why we spoke about that last week a lot. Why we need to connect strategy with performance management. We've already further and expanded upon the need today. Now we are begun to look into the how, right? And we said that the process of streamlining, the process of narrowing down our strategic priorities, the process of defining with clarity what the destination is, and ensuring that the different organizations within the organization, because sometimes you're a group, like I said, sometimes you're a nation, and you have different ministries, departments, and agencies. Sometimes you're a group, and you have different companies, and you're a holding group, and you have different companies. Sometimes you're a company, and you have different departments, or divisions. Sometimes you even have different regions, right? Different geographical regions. Whatever your organizational structure is, the cohesion that is required to ensure that in as much as there is organizational inclusivity, there is still personal individual accountability. That cohesion that synchronizes the group level or the broad level effort with the lower level activities are those strategic themes, right? Those strategic / performance themes. The strategic priority is one and wholesome, right? The strategic direction of the organization is all-encompassing. Everyone is included in that strategic direction, but the actual role that each part has to play, each division, each region, each department, each unit, each role, in fact, even down to the role, the specificity of accountability is what performance management helps you define. But performance management cannot define it apart from those strategic themes, which should now become the performance themes. Otherwise, there'll be a dissonance, right? There'll be a discordance, right? There'll be no cohesion. And that way, you would not be optimizing organizational resources, because people will essentially be defining what their own priorities are if the organization does not define it, and if the leadership does not define it as all of those structural levels. Now, let's take the technological aspect of it very quickly, and we will be, wrapping it up for today's edition of the program. Right, let's take it. So how does technology help to synchronize this, right? How does technology help to ensure that we have a cohesive structure, a cohesive structural strategy, right? In terms of the strategy, yes, we have the strategy broadly defined, but the structure that supports the strategy for implementation must be as cohesive as possible, right? How do we deploy technology in achieving this? Now, don't forget again that technology is a tool. Technology is an enabler, right? Technology is not going to articulate your strategic priorities for you, but technology certainly helps to bring that cohesion across the organization, right? When you're deploying a technological tool and you're trying to put in those themes into the technological tool, it helps to have technology bring that cohesion across all the structures within the organization. It is easy for there to be one theme running, and those themes can be cascaded still using the technological tool. Those themes can be cascaded. Those themes can also be populated in terms of translating them into different goals. Technology helps you to fill in different goals for different roles while the same theme runs across, and that's just the performance contracting part of it, the goal setting part of it. Technology helps you to do that, right? Of course, technology also helps you to ensure that those areas of dissonance are easily visible, right? Technology brings visibility, to those areas, unlike when you're going through, massive tons of forms or emails, or or all kinds of, even if you're using, when I say forms, even if they are, for instance, forms in Microsoft Word forms or forms in Excel sheet, that's still one level of technology. But imagine you have an app like we have in Amogate, like we've always been talking about our ASEF Amogate Strategy Application and Implementation Framework app. Imagine you're using an app that actually helps you to populate the different organizational structural levels, right, in terms of their specific responsibilities, across the different organizational levels in terms of the structure, and even across the different roles under each level of the structure. Technology can easily pinpoint, highlight, those areas where there's a dissonance, where there is a discordance, right, where the goals, for instance, are not aligned with the overall strategic / performance thing. Technology can quickly spotlight it, right, and technology can flag it, right. Technology is trained to follow what you program essentially, right. That's why I talk about machine learning. Once you populate it, technology can easily flash it and say, no, this is not in accordance with what has been defined at a higher level, that's at the strategic theme level or the strategic priority level. Technology can easily pick it in a way that we cannot do as easily using manual tools. Even less artificially intelligent, compliant technological tools may not easily pick the dissonance, may not easily pick the discordance between for instance, the performance goals and the performance themes, right? But once you have trained the technological tool, like we train ASEF and are still training ASEF to identify the dissonance, to identify the discordance, to identify the parts that are not in sync with those predefined codes that show that there is an alignment between the strategy and the performance goals. Once you have trained the core system, or once you have trained the core frame of the app to identify those codes, it is very easy for technology, especially the higher levels of technology, to flag the areas of misalignment. Remember, you are talking about translating strategy into performance management, right, using technology. And the reason you are doing that, don't forget, we are coming from last week to this week. The reason you are doing that is to ensure a strategic synchronization between your organizational level effort and your structural departments and units and whatever your structural frame is, right, all across down to the individual at the lowest level of the organization. Even if you have 35,000 staff, there must be that alignment. But that alignment, if you leave it to the default manual human flow, it is easily compromised. The strategic alignment is easily compromised. But when you program a tool like ASEF to pick and to flag those areas of dissonance, it is easy to spot misalignment, and you don't have to wait till the end of a strategic period or to the end of a strategic plan implementation phase to begin to say what went wrong here, like we've done several times in several organizations. And you'll find out that part of what hindered implementation, part of what hindered the achievement of their strategic goals or their strategic priorities was that misalignment. You don't want to know how many times the misalignment between structural level effort and overall strategic direction has been responsible for poor, failed, or outright non-implementation of the strategy. It happens a lot of times, but you do not want to be learning after the fact, right? What technology does is that it helps you learn as you go, right? Technology quickly helps you learn the level of alignment, level of strategic alignment that is occurring in the organization, because these tools help to flag it, because you have pre-coded the tools, you have pre-coded the technological tools to flag the misalignment using certain frames and certain codes and certain languages, and they are quick to flag it. Now, will technology do the thinking for you? No. Will technology, there's a level to which technology can help you do the organizational diagnosis, so why is there this misalignment? But as the human being, we keep saying this in Amogate, right, that technology enables your strategy, it doesn't create your strategy. Technology amplifies your thinking, it doesn't do your thinking for you, right? So after technology has flagged it, after the technological tool has flagged that misalignment where there is between your strategy and your performance management, between strategic direction and the performance goals, or the performance a focus of different levels of your structure, of your institutional structure, we will still have to do the work of digging deep, to probe the cause of that alignment, to still do some work. And we are here as Amogate Communications Consult to help you. This is what we do, is our passion, is our expertise. Remember, bridging the strategy performance gap is one of the things that has been a relentless pursuit. It's not just a passion for us in Amogate, it has also been a relentless pursuit, because we know how much happens in terms of missed opportunities when there is that misalignment between strategy and execution, right? So for us, it's not just our passion, it's also our expertise, it's our area of strength, it's an area by God's grace that has become an excellence, not beyond expertise, that also become an excellence that we're associated with, right? But let us help you to understand that process, and let us help you to deploy the process of aligning your strategy with performance management to guarantee execution, to enable execution, to accelerate execution, right? So that you're not learning after the fact. Technology will help you to learn as you go, right? Technology will help you to increase your speed. Remember, we said that last week, and we're expanding upon it, right? When you train those technological tools, especially using things like generative AI to pick the areas of misalignment, when you pre-code your technological tools to flag the areas of the misalignment, when you even train those technological tools to identify the areas of, for instance, the aspects of the organizations where there tends to be, for instance, a greater level of alignment, you can also dig deep. Remember, technology is not going to do the digging deep to a certain level, like we said, but you can at least also, it flags the areas of higher alignment in the organization, and you can then go in, of course, working with the support of organizations like Amogate, you can go in to probe what exactly is the correlation between a higher level of alignments between strategy and performance management in one part of the organization, in one part of the structure. What are those things that are associated with a higher level of alignment between strategy and performance management in a particular part of the organization that you don't find? What are those factors you find in that part of the organization that has the higher level of alignment that you don't find in another level, or in another aspect, or in another region of the organization? Is it, for instance, leadership? Is it, for instance, communication? Is there more effective communication in one aspect of, or in one section, or in one region of the organization where there's a greater level of alignment? Is there better communication there than you have in another organization that in another part of the organization that is lacking in that strategic alignment, that is daily required for strategy execution? Wow. I think this is how far we can go on today's edition of the program. Today we have tried to look more at the how, right? We did a quick recap of last week. We also talked a little bit more on why we need to align strategy with performance management, why we need to translate strategy into performance management using technology. But we then went deeper into the how. We spoke about the need to ensure that we have strategic things. Yes, there must be a strategic priority for the organization. The strategic direction must be set, which is like defining the destination, but that must also be cascaded into the different themes, so that we know the different parts, that the different levels of the organizational structure, different departments, the different divisions, they will have to play in arriving at that organization. And then we spoke about the role of technology and how technology can be deployed to increase that alignment between strategy and performance management, and of course to flag the areas where there is reduced alignment, as well as also highlight the sections of the organization where there may be increased alignment, while we of course still go further as humans to dig deeper into these areas of both increased and decreased alignment, probing to identify the factors that may be responsible for the increase or decrease in alignment between strategy and performance management, in order to ensure that we are learning along the way rather than waiting to the end of the performance period to begin to learn in reverse or in retrospect only. We will still learn in retrospect, but it's more efficient to also be learning along the way. Well, this is where we're going to cut in today's edition of the program. We have really enjoyed doing this with you. Translating strategy into performance management is our passion and is our expertise. We look forward to working along with you in your nations, in your institutions, in your organizations. Please call on us. Please check us out. We're passionate about what we do. We love what we do, and we do what we love. You are the reason why we do this. Please reach out to us. You can send us an email, contact@theamogate.org. You can fill our contact form on www.theamogate.org. You can reach us on any of our social media handles, from LinkedIn to Facebook to Instagram. We are here for you, and we cannot wait to partner with you at your national, institutional, and organizational levels to bring increased strategic efficiency to what you're doing. Thank you very much for doing this with us. We'll be back same time, same station next week. Remember, until then, my colleagues have great programs for the rest of the week from Tuesday to Friday. Until I'm back next Monday, same time, same station. Have a good one and remain strategic and aligned. Have a good one.
Amogate, founded in 2008 out of a desire to build transgenerational structures for organizations, institutions, and nations. We have worked with large businesses, international development organizations, and public sector ministries and agencies. Amogate, our uniqueness is that we do not just work for you, we work with you. For example, we do not leave you to the task after sourcing talent that will help the new hire settle into robust leadership development programs. We are technical experts in advising and supporting institutions on strategy and leadership, artificial intelligence, strategic human resource management, public sector reform, finance, audit and tax, FAT, and strategic communications. We do all this and more out of a desire to transform nations through institutions and organizations. For further inquiries, email contact@theamogate.org or call +234 810 999 6666, +234 807 957 4151, and +161 0504 6026. www.theamogate.org. Amogate, building to endure and transforming nations through institutions and organizations.